Sachin Matthews and little Matt Patella. And we're going to demonstrate the concept of the stroke and what occurs when you do stroke a drum correctly and incorrectly. So Sachin, let's talk about the stroking positions. Give me a full stroke.
Okay.
Why is that a full stroke?
It's a full stroke because you return to the same position that you were at before.
And look at the distance. What is that? The distance? About 18 inches? Is that for volume?
No.
It's for volume.
It's distance.
It's distance? What do you mean by distance?
It's the amount. It's like the amount of units from the tip of the sticks to the pad.
Okay, so give me a downstroke.
So are you saying it's not about the distance gives you acceleration?
Well, it can. It doesn't have to.
Ah, I see.
What do you mean it can? It doesn't have to. I don't understand. I could throw the stick down hard, or I could throw it down soft, or
like, you can begin at a point that's like 0, and then so you start at the 0, and then you do accelerate a little bit to begin to move the stick. But from that point, you can easily keep it at the same speed constantly, or you can accelerate the full time.
Okay.
So you're saying you can play soft or loud from that position.
Yes.
That's a good one.
That's the acceleration.
But the norm, isn't it? If you're playing from that position, is to be loud.
Yes, that's the norm.
Okay. And what happens when you make impact on the drum? What happens to your hand?
Well, your hand, it has to be loose because when you have the drumstick, it creates a vibration once it makes impact with the pad. And because the pad also makes a vibration, you have to make sure that the stick vibrates properly so that both the pad and the drumstick will make the sound. But when you tighten up with your hand, you prevent the stick from vibrating properly, and because of that, the vibration is pulled into your arm just to prevent the vibration.
So when the vibration is pulled into your arm, what happens to the muscle?
It becomes ripped at different parts of it.
Okay, and what does that cause?
That eventually does it's not usually the muscle. Usually it affects the tendons more, like with tendonitis or carpal tunnel syndrome, because it damages them, but in a way that when it becomes fixed, it becomes more stiff in general.
Okay.
Because the scar tissue on the tendons is larger than the normal size of tendons.
So you say this is a permanent condition that you develop?
It can be, yes.
It was constant.
It causes inflammation of the tendons, and then you have a tendon you have a fiber going across called the flexor retinaculum.
Yeah.
And when the swelling happens in those tendons, that's where you get the pain,
Yeah.
and the median nerve actually is compressed.
Yeah.
So until that's released, you have to undergo surgery to release that.
So in other words, to avoid carpal tunnel syndrome, okay, it's best just to relax your stroke. And on impact, I don't know what I should do. Should I tighten my hand or just stop the stick? What do I do?
You should try to sort of stop the stick, make sure it doesn't go out of control, but if you tighten it, it won't sound better. It won't even sound good in general.
You mean if I tighten the stick?
Yes.
Now let me see. That's tight.
Yes.
And I did feel some sort of pressure or tension behind my wrist. But now if I just throw the stick down and loose, but just kind of control it at that point and stop it lightly, there was a big difference in sound, right?
Yes.
Okay, that was a projection of the sound. Okay? And, if you hit stroke from up here, what are you doing?
You're just
Put your hand up. Let me see. What is that? If you stroke from up there, what do you do?
You're creating a greater distance.
Yeah, and what does that do?
Well, generally it tightens up this area of the muscle around here, which for drumming, if you do drum like this, it's going to cause major problems.
What kind of major problems, Doc?
Well, like I was saying before, when you do damage muscles, you produce a large amount of scar tissue
Right.
to fix up those muscles, which is generally why muscles grow larger. But in some areas, muscles are supposed to be delicate and defined. Like around here, namely the tendons and a bit of the muscle growth, is supposed to be delicate so that you can have the normal motor functions that everyone does. But if you usually do like this or exaggerate, it can repeatedly, it can damage that, and some motor function can be lost.
So that's sort of it's very unnatural to do that.
Well, Billy Joel's drummer, Liberty DeVito, is an amazing drummer.
He hits
did
hard.
He did a seminar at PASIC about about injuries, and he had to have rotator cuff surgery in his shoulder, which is the same thing that baseball pitchers experience. Because he used to play, he back in the day, he hit harder than any drummer I've ever seen. And he said he paid the price after 20 years of doing that in his shoulder, playing like that. And he went and took, after that he had surgery, he started exercising more, and he took lessons to improve his technique to stop hurting himself.
Well, I think in today's world, with all this modern technology, I mean, to hit that hard is totally unnecessary, other than the fact of destroying your body and destroying the sound that you're trying to produce. I would just tell the sound man to turn the volume up.
Well, I think a lot of it guys do it for show, and you mentioned that too. And now, he plays the same way now, but he has technique behind it. So he makes it look like he's aggressive, but he's actually using proper technique.
So he's doing his showmanship up here, but he's still loose.
Yeah.
Right? As we're talking about, people come from here, and when they make impact, they hit hard and they tighten up. Whereas now, and I've seen Liberty DeVito, he's a hard hitter. And when he comes all the way up in the air like that, let me see, go all the way up in the air, Sergeant. Like this, he does the same thing, and it looks nice. It's a showmanship thing. But he's not, when he makes impact, not tightening up. He's coming down, which he can do, and hit the drum. But come down with some impact. Right. And that looks good, but he's not creating any damage because he's not tense.
Yeah.
It's totally unnecessary for speed, because at that point, isn't speed almost impossible? Like if I want to play like that, if I was playing up here like that, wouldn't that be kind of ridiculous?
Yeah, it's mainly for showmanship. If you were
It's mainly for what?
Showmanship. If you were actually to try to do that, like while you're playing like a routine, in which you exactly like a pretty fast, you have to make sure that like everything stays in tempo, otherwise everything gets thrown out. This would not be recommended
At all. Not at all. So if I want
Plus, when your time suffer, I would think, unless you're really solid, like with super time, I would think all that distance you're creating.
Well, the point is, if you're gonna play like this here, to play up here, and it's like Joe Morello says in one of his videos, doing this, eventually you're gonna levitate and fly away, right? But it's more for showmanship. It's not really a valid technique, and it's a very dangerous thing if you approach it as a technique to play that way, because you are going to create some physical damage to your body, like you just mentioned with
Liberty
DeVito.
Yeah, because the fine muscles in here are namely for rotating this ball and socket joint.
Mm-hmm.
And normally when that becomes much too big, like except if you have like a large skeletal structure, this, I mean literally if it becomes too big and you don't have like the bones to sort of make sure that doesn't hinder you, it sort of kind of tries to move itself.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than trying to move the bone, and it just
It's the damage. You're gonna get damage. You know what? Why don't you both of you guys demonstrate an execution of accents? And you guys have played this together a couple times, so it's not that it's not rehearsed. We do something like the paradiddle tree, and we do 2 single paradiddles, 2 double paradiddles, 2 triple paradiddles, and 2 paradiddle diddles and back. What I'd like you to do is demonstrate just the natural flow of the accent. Okay? And whoever wants to start it can start it.
You can start with that.
Okay, that's okay. All right, stop. Now, there was no kind of tension there, was there? We're just dropping the accents, and that comes from the stick heights. Well, both you guys know as the full stroke, the downstroke, the tap, and the upstroke, and that's essential in what you were just doing. And now, if you wanted a louder stroke there, how would you? We were going to talk about the speed. I could get an accent like that from the same point, right? Or what's the difference there? What did I just do?
Well, at that point, you're rapidly accelerating so that you can create much more force with the impact.
And where does that equal? I know this guy named Alan Herman who has a formula for that.
Oh, no, it's not my formula.
Well, I know it's not your formula, but you bring it out in the public.
Yeah, well, you know about Newton?
Yes.
You want to explain to us how that works? You
Well,
know about the three laws of motion, the
yes.
gravity and all that?
So, Newton was a man who studied motion and gravity and different forces that sort of created the universe that were believed to be at the time like great. Right now we know that the two forces he discovered were two of the lesser forces, but still forces that created the universe.
How long ago did he do this?
He did this in the 1700s, I think.
Oh, so that's like 300, 400 years ago.
Yes.
So there's been improvements since
There
then.
has been, but
Okay.
most of that has been due to nuclear power.
Okay.
So it would have been much too, like, if he would have done that back then, he would literally be, I am future man. I have my time machine and I am back here. And this is what we call nuclear power. By splitting the nucleus up in half.
Enough.
So the formula became E equal MC squared instead of...
Rather than the acceleration.
Yeah, force equals acceleration
times mass.
Mass, right?
Well, what you're doing, both of you guys are doing, or you're on the right direction, is that you're getting the correct technique as far as the levels and how to develop the sound, and you're surrounded by some very, very good, intelligent people. So and you accepting it as, you're just going to do it. You're not going to hurt yourself when you get older. You're not going to suffer from any kind of damage to your muscles or to your nervous system. So I thank both of you guys for your time, your explanation, and I hope this carries on into the drum world. So thank you guys.